This is the Louie T Network.
Draft Zone. Draft Zone.
Welcome. You are
Draft
in the lab room.
Zone.
I am your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on this program, 2014 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. We're using the Who's Next format, where the viewers, you, choose who's going to be next. In this series, one by one, we'll go through each and every single team in the National Football League's 2014 NFL Draft, break it down, and grade out each and every single player, get an aggregate score using our baseball grading scale, single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series, as we cannot tell how these players will pan out. And so, how we determine who's next is simple. We take the first comment left at the bottom of this video in the comment section and those that will follow. The first comment of the video left in the comment section at the bottom of this video stating next and the team that you want to see next. So 3 components. Number 1, be first. Number 2, the word next, the phrase next. And number 3, the team you want to see next. Don't care how you phrase it. Don't care how you put it. As long as the phrase next and the team that you would like to see next is in that comment section and you're first, that team is going to be next up on the docket here in the 2014 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. So, you know the rules to the game. Now let's play. It's the Indianapolis Colts and their 2014 NFL Draft. So let's wrap it up. Look at the players they selected, give them a grade, and move on to the next team in the process. So I've got my handy dandy pointer. I've got my big board behind me. Let's get to work. And so the Indianapolis Colts in a nice, small, tight, compacted draft. 5 selections. That's it. Keep in mind, no first round pick. Only 2 teams in the National Football League in 2014 did not hold a first round pick. The Washington Redskins via the Robert Griffin III trade was one, and the Indianapolis Colts via the Trent Richardson trade was the other. So the Indianapolis Colts do not hold a first round pick. They did not hold one in the 2014 NFL Draft. So we pick up the action in round number 2. And we start second round, 59th overall selection, offensive tackle out of Ohio State University. The Ohio State University, Jack Mewhort. And Jack Mewhort is an interesting case because he's a guy that can play multiple positions. He's a guy that will play multiple positions on the offensive line. And the one that he specialized in at college, I don't think is going to be his natural fit in the National Football League. He played tackle at Ohio State. More specifically, he played left tackle at Ohio State University. I don't think he's a left tackle. Let me rephrase that. I know he's not a left tackle in the National Football League. And here's why. I put on the tape of this guy, and it's funny because, and let me give you a little bit of backstory as to why this is funny. You always hear people talk about length. And again, I've just started to give the credit that length deserves in its rightful place in the pantheon of things that matter in the National Football League. Length matters. Length helps you win in this league. I've never, they talk about guys having long arms, and I really never thought about why that matters as an offensive lineman. Why do I care if this guy's arms are 35.5 inches long? Why does that matter? Why can't he just have 32.5-inch arms, and I feel just as good about him as the guy with 35.5-inch arms? That never really crossed my mind, and I never really gave it much thought until I watched Jack Mewhort, and it all makes sense to me now. And I put on the Clemson tape in this past year's bowl game, and what an exhilarating bowl that was. I mean, that was one of the better bowl games in 2014. But anyway, he was destroyed in that game, was Jack Mewhort. Bless his heart. I mean, Vic Beasley and Curse, the two defensive ends, the two better defensive ends for the Clemson Tigers, man, they went to work on Jack Mewhort in that game. And you know what they won with? Surprisingly, I thought, they're going to kill this guy with speed. And they got him with some speed, too. But you know what they really killed him in this game with? They killed him with power. And you know how they killed him with the power? With length. They used their arms, extended them out, and jacked, no pun intended there, and jacked Jack Mewhort back into the quarterback and got sacks. And when that wasn't working, or when they said, hey, he's looking for power, how about we just throw a little bit of speed at him and go right by him? And so once you get one thing working and you start looking for it, it's almost like a fastball pitcher. You step up to the plate, and this guy's throwing easy gas. I'm talking 98, 99. He's pumping strikes in the strike zone. And you just watch the first two batters of the inning strike out, all fastballs. So you step up, knowing what you know, seeing what you saw. You step up expecting fastball, expecting cheese. And the first pitch you see is a changeup or a hook. And you're not expecting that. And so for Jack Mewhort, he struggled in that game mightily. I mean, they dominated him. And it was because they were longer. You ever seen a guy, or this is what I like to equate it to. You ever seen a big brother with his little brother? And, the little brother is tired of getting picked on, so he tries to fight back. And the big brother just puts his arm out on top of the brother's head, the little brother's head, and the little brother is swinging, and he can't reach his big brother. And he's just holding him back, and he's just swinging away, but he's not hitting anything. That's how I felt about Jack Mewhort. When Vic Beasley stuck his arm out and extended and got up into the shoulder pad and drove Jack Mewhort back, Jack Mewhort tried to gain his wits. He tried to get his hands on Vic Beasley and stop the madness and anchor down, and he couldn't. His arms weren't long enough. He couldn't reach. Vic Beasley put that one arm out there, extended it, and drove him back into the lap of his quarterback. And so Braxton Miller didn't stand a chance on those plays. And for me, Jack Mewhort can't be a tackle in this league. Not like that. You got to kick him inside the guard where he'll have help. If he's struggling, the center can come over and chip just to give him a little bit of help and make sure that he's fine. And then the center can move on and do whatever it is he needs to do. So if I'm the Indianapolis Colts, I draft Jack Mewhort knowing that in a pinch, as an emergency player only, he can go to tackle, but I'd like him better as a guard, maybe even as a center. And so I think Mewhort has so much versatility that you feel really good. And I think that's why he was the pick here at 59. Honestly speaking, is because of the versatility. You're not set at center yet. I mean, you got guys, but you don't feel 110% about any of them. And so he could easily step in and be your center. You could easily upgrade the guard position, and he could be the next guy in line to help you fortify this offensive line, because you need to fortify this offensive line in front of Andrew Luck. And so this guy's going to come in. He's going to start somewhere. I mean, guard, center, one of these positions along this offensive line is going to be occupied by Jack Mewhort. He does a lot of things well. I mean, he wasn't all bad in that game. I watched more tape of him. Watched him against Wisconsin. I watched him in a couple of other games, and he was solid. I mean, the guy is a really good offensive lineman. He just has a few deficiencies that he can't help, and one of them is length. And so that is going to kick him inside, where I think he's a better fit anyhow. He moves well enough. He's got functional movement skills. He's strong at the point of attack for the most part. Again, he was getting driven back because he wasn't long enough. Guys were able to get up under his pads and drive it back, but that's not an issue inside because you're dealing with guys with short arms just like you. A lot of times when you're inside at the guard and center positions, you're dealing with defensive tackles. Guys aren't really long at defensive tackle. Arms aren't extremely long and vines like those defensive ends out on the edges. So he'll fit in. He'll be more comfortable at guard, at center. And I think the versatility here is what sold the Indianapolis Colts in the second round, 59th overall selection, offensive tackle or guard or center. Just call him an offensive lineman out of the Ohio State University. Jack Mewhort, for me, is a solid triple. He's not a home run because he can't play tackle. And so, got to dock him for that. But because of the versatility, he can't be a double either because this is a guy that can play all 5 positions on the offensive line if need be. And so, by virtue of that, and again, I want to rule out left tackle. Maybe he could get away with having those short arms at right tackle, but, I mean, if Vic Beasley moves over to the right side and is in front of him, what's the difference? I mean, there isn't one to me. You kick him inside. He's either a guard or a center, and I think you feel good about this guy day one as a plug-and-play guard or center for your football team. You move on to the third round, 90th overall selection, wide receiver out of Ole Miss, Donte Moncrief. And to me, this is your first round pick right here. You don't have a first round pick, don't worry about it. This is your best pick by far in this draft. And if you told me none of these guys except one panned out in this draft, this is the guy I'm going with right here, Donte Moncrief. And the reason why I look at Donte Moncrief as a first round pick because he has everything you're looking for in a number 1 receiver. The potential for a number, see, it's rare to get a number 1 receiver in the third round. Normally, you got to go in the first round for one of those. You know, you get a guy in the second, maybe he can become a number 1 receiver. But once you start going third, fourth, fifth round, you're normally getting complementary guys. You're getting a number 2, a number 3, a number 4 option. Donte Moncrief has everything you're looking for. He has the makeup, the body, the height, weight, speed. He's a height, weight, speed specimen. He's got the height, weight, speed of a number 1 receiver. 6'2", 220 pounds, 4'4", 40 flat. So we're talking about 4.39 type, 4.30, 40 speed. We're talking about almost sub 4.4, 40 speed. Speed! The guy's a blazer. At that size, vertical out of this world, broad jump is ridiculous, explosion everywhere, oozing out of every nook and cranny. You put the tape on and the dude is flying by people, flying by guys. And this isn't rinky-dink competition. This is SEC football we're talking about. He's running past LSU. He's running past Bama. He's running past Tennessee. He's running past Auburn. You name it, this guy is putting them in the toaster. He's burning them. And I'm like, whoa! And when I first laid eyes on this guy was at the combine. And I'm like, who is this guy? Man, he looks impressive. Man, he looks fast. Man, he looks explosive. And he's catching the football. So I was impressed. And I put on the tape and I said, he's probably one of these guys that's a workout warrior. You put on the tape and he looks nothing like he looks in a t-shirt and some shorts. Doesn't look like the same guy. And I put on the tape, and I was wrong. This guy looked the part. He looked everything that I saw at the combine. He looked exactly the same way on tape. The only couple of questions I have about this guy, and they are easily fixed. Okay? One, and this is the one that's the easiest to fix, is route running. He's not a route runner right now. And the first tape that I popped in, I just knew I was getting a guy that was a route runner because the first 2 routes I seen him run, I was like, whoa, those were impressive. The first route I saw him run was a double move. It was a stop and go. It was a stutter and go. So he runs about 5 yards off the line, and he gives me a heck of a shimmy like he's coming at the top of a break. And the corner bit down on that stop. And then he went. He stop and go, baby. Stop and go. And that corner bit it out. And he took off running down the sideline. And his quarterback overshot him by about 3 yards. And this dude could have walked to the end zone. He was so wide open. So the second time I saw, and so this is like 3 plays later, they come back to the move. But this time, he does it a little bit different. Instead of him coming and breaking down like he's about to come back on a comeback, he jumps up in the air and gives me like this sort of half stop, you know, almost like a hesitation. He's running and then he jumps in the air like, I don't know what I'm about to do, and then he takes off. Kind of lulled him to sleep. And this time he hit him, but he underthrew him. But nonetheless, he came down with it. It was like a 40-yard gain. I'm like, woo, that was 2 crispy routes that this guy just ran back to back. I'm impressed. And so I'm thinking, I'm getting a supreme route runner. And then I watched 2 more tapes of this guy, and it seemed like he knew about 4 routes. That was it. And after that, there wasn't much there. And so I'm like, this guy needs work. And those same 2 routes that I saw that I was impressed with, he ran that same route like 8 more times. I'm like, okay, you can't keep running a stop and go. It only works if you're running stops. And you don't run it as often. And so, yeah, he wore that route out. He can run a back shoulder fade at that size, that height, that speed, that weight. You got to respect the speed, so you're backing up. That height allows you to run that back shoulder fade and give you the target that you're looking for. I mean, he has everything, all the tools necessary to be a #1 receiver. He just has to learn how to run routes. I said it was 2 deficiencies. That's one. The second one is he's got to catch the ball. He's got to catch the ball. He's got to be consistent. There's no room for error in the National Football League. You get open, I need you to catch the football. There are times where he is so excited and he wants to make a play. And he's so anxious to get the football in his hands and turn up the field and see what he can make happen after the catch, that he forgets the first thing and the most important thing: catch the football. Okay? You can't run and gun. You can't have fun. You can't ball without the ball. And so, yeah, he can catch the football. I'm not saying the guy's got shaky or faulty hands. I just need you to focus, young man. Focus, young man, focus. And if you can do that, catch the football when it is thrown in your general direction, along with the route running. And I think that'll come with experience. That'll come with being with a coach that's going to make you a more refined and polished football player. This is a #1 receiver right here, man. I'm telling you what. This is a #1 receiver if I've ever seen one. And I think people are sleeping on him because his numbers weren't the most gaudy. And look, he played at Ole Miss with Bo Wallace. And Bo was throwing the football all over the place at times. Now, granted, Bo could put some balls on the money, but I just told you there were a couple of times this guy's running wide open and Bo overshot him by about 5 yards. So if he were playing with one of these elite quarterbacks, his numbers would have been a lot better. And so I'm telling you right now, I see big things in the future of Donte Moncrief. I can assure you his best football has yet to come. It's in front of him. And if the Colts can coach this guy up correctly, they have got themselves a steal here in the 3rd round, 90th overall selection. Wide receiver out of Mississippi, Donte Moncrief for me. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. I can't do it. He's a triple. I wanted to give him a home run. I can't do it because he's not a polished route runner yet, and he's got some drop issues. Oh, I wanted to do it because the potential is there, and I'm drooling over 6'2", 220, 4'4", 40. Oh, I wanted to do it. Can't bring myself to do it because he's got a couple of issues he's got to clean up. But everything is there, my goodness. Please turn this man into a #1 receiver. Andrew Luck, I'm putting the onus on you. Make this guy into a premier receiver in this league. You got you one right here. Now you guys just got to carve this guy and mold him into the receiver that I think he can be in this league. 5th round selection, 166 overall, defensive end out of Ball State, Jonathan Newsome. Here's a guy that I fell in love with at the combine. And there were about, I'd say 4 or 5 guys when I broke down the combine, and I think it was day number 2, if I'm not mistaken. And my day 2 coverage of the combine, either day 2 or day 3, one or the other. Either way, I said that there were about 4 or 5 guys that could make the transition from defensive end to linebacker, outside linebacker. And that was it. This draft didn't have a lot of guys that I felt like were conversion guys. When they were asked to go through the conversion drills and stand up and flip the hips and kind of move around out in space, they looked lost. A lot of the guys did that were defensive ends that were asked to stand up, like a Trent Murphy, fish out of water when was asked to stand up. Michael Sam couldn't do it. So a lot of those guys, they're not apt at standing up, taking their hand out of the dirt, and being asked to move around in space. But there were about 4 or 5 guys, and I think 2 of the most impressive ones, one went in the first round and Marcus Smith out of Louisville. The other was Jonathan Newsome out of Ball State. And if you ask me, Newsome was much more impressive to me in the movement drills than Marcus Smith was. However, Smith had more production, and he's more of a natural pass rusher, so he went in the first round to the Eagles. But Jonathan Newsome, for me, is a guy that I think has the ability to do all of the things you're looking for out of an outside linebacker in a 3-4 defense, which is what you play in Indianapolis. So this is a great fit. He's listed as a defensive end. He's not playing defensive end for you. He's playing outside linebacker in a 3-4 defense, and I think it's a wonderful fit because I liked him more in college at Ball State when he was standing up, because he was a guy that put his hand in the dirt and he would rush after the quarterback. But I preferred him standing up and coming off the edges that way. I think he's more explosive standing up than with his hand in the dirt. And so I like that. And he can drop into coverage. Is he a smooth athlete? Is he a guy that you want in coverage repeatedly? No. I'm not saying that that's what you want out of this guy, but he can. It's there. If you want to tap into that, it's always good to know something's there. You know, just because it's there doesn't mean you want to do it, but it's good to know that it's there. And so, no, do you want him using this all the time? No, not necessarily, but it's there. And if you need it, you just know, hey, it's in my back pocket. But I want this guy to learn how to rush the quarterback a little bit more, because I think that it's a different dynamic when you stand up versus when you got your hand in the dirt. And I need him to come with some more moves. Everything I saw from him was speed. Speed to the outside. Speed with a rip. I want to see him translate speed to power. And I want to see some inside moves. I think guys in college football, they're so good at one thing that they don't develop secondary moves, or they don't develop other things off of the one thing that they're good. It's called a counter move. All right? When you're elite and you do something really well, it works, so you just keep going to the well. And for a guy like Jonathan Newsome, he can get to the quarterback. He's got an explosive first step. And that second step and that third step, they're long steps. So if I beat you with that first step, I can duck under, and that next step or two I take, I'm gone. You can't catch me now. I'm going after the quarterback. And he has an innate ability to get around the corner. However, guys are looking for that after a while. So that's when you come outside hard, back inside. Or that's when you just say, to hell with the outside, I'm going straight inside on this one. I'm crashing down inside and I'm ripping, or I'm swimming inside. See if you can beat me. See if you can get in front of me. And if not, you're going to have to hold me, and you're going to draw a flag. So, you know, I want to see some different moves. I want to see you take the right arm, jack him up. Take the left arm, you know, stick it up under his pads and put him in the lap of the quarterback and get you a sack that way. I want to see guys develop more than one move, and I think Jonathan Newsome, he needs to do that. Now, in the run game, there's a lot left to be desired there. He's got to get stronger at the point of attack. He's got to get heavier hands. And he's got to find a way to stand up and do his job in the run game. I'm not asking you to knife in the backfield because he can do that. He can be a disruptive force. But there's something to be said about just standing your ground. You're supposed to be in the A-gap. Stand your guy up in the A-gap. Do your job and allow somebody else to come and clean up the mess. Filter the garbage and filter the play back into the inside. Don't let that guy on the outside of you. And so he's got to stand up a little bit stouter at the point of attack. But I think he's fine. And I like what he brings to the table. And I think he's going to infuse this Indianapolis Colts front seven with a little bit of athleticism and explosion. Something that I think they lack in that front seven. You know, outside of course, Robert Mathis, who's going to be suspended for the first 4 games of the season. So I think a guy like Jonathan Newsome is what the doctor ordered in Indianapolis. I like this selection. 5th round, 166th overall selection. Defensive end. Let's just call him a linebacker. Let's call a spade a spade. He's a linebacker out of Ball State. For me, Jonathan Newsome is a solid double. I think there's some work to be done here. He's a guy that I really like, but linebacker isn't natural for him. He's a defensive end by trade. I think he can make the transition seamlessly. However, there is work there to be done. He needs to be better at rushing the quarterback. He needs to be stouter at the point of attack in the run game. And he could use a little bit of fine-tuning in his coverage skills as well. So there's work there to be done. He's a 5th round pick, so you obviously know that. But there's potential there. There's explosion there. There's an ability to get to the quarterback there. Harness that. Get him to use all of those things to become a really good football player in this league. I think he's going to make this team, and he's going to contribute for you earlier than you think. Much sooner, especially with this suspension for Robert Mathis. He may contribute much sooner than later. So you move on to the 6th round, 203rd overall selection, linebacker out of Western Kentucky, Andrew Jackson. First time I laid eyes on him when I watched tape, I said, man, this guy's small. I looked at him, I said, is this guy 5'10"? I mean, what am I supposed to do with this? And so I had to go look his height up. And, you know, sometimes you can't trust these different sites because I remember when I played football, I told them, and they go by anything, and they'll embellish your height. I said, hey, I'm 6'2". I'm not 6'2". I'm 6 feet tall. And I said, yeah, I'm 6'2", you know, $180. And they put that in the program. And so people are like, oh, yeah, you 6'2". No, I'm not 6'2". I'll take it, you know. So, because I wanted to be 6'2". But, so I was like, maybe this is one of those embellishments where, you know, they tell you somebody's 6 feet when they're really 5'10" and a half. You know, Johnny Manziel for the longest time. Oh, yeah, he's 6 feet. No, he's not. Johnny Manziel isn't over 6 feet. He's 5'11", 5'10", you know. And so looking at this guy, I'm like, no way this guy is anything over 5'11" 3/4. But they said he was 6'1". I don't know if I'm buying it, but then again, I don't know if he gets drafted if this guy's 5'11". I don't think London Fletcher and Sam Mills and those guys are enough to get guys drafted. You got to be a undrafted free agent rookie that knocks it out of the park and really opens up some eyes, because London Fletcher was not drafted. He was undrafted out of John Carroll University. And guys that size normally don't get drafted. I mean, Chris Borland. Borland out of Wisconsin is a totally different issue. Totally different subject matter. But guys normally don't get drafted at that height. But let's just go with the premise and the assumption that this guy's 6'1". Okay? So forget about height. He's 200 and about 55 pounds or so. So he's a big guy. I mean, he's stout. He's compact. Low center of gravity, built, stocky, and very thick kind of guy. Lot of power. When he comes to hit, he can bring the wood. I mean, he's coming with cruel intentions. He's showing up to the party with some really bad intentions. And his issue is, A, he's small. I just talked about that. B, sometimes he comes with such cruel intentions that he just flat out misses. Another thing that I have an issue with is, hey, I need you to be athletically gifted. He's not that fast. You know, he doesn't blow you away with any of, doesn't blow you away with the measurables. Not really fast. So, you know, what he lacks in speed and height, he makes up with power and the ability to clog up in the run game. And when you're small, when you're a smaller guy, you can kind of get through the crevices and cracks a little bit easier because you can hide. Guys don't see you as easily. First they see you, now they don't. Then you reappear and you're making a tackle. And so I saw him do that a couple of times. You know, I watched him against Alabama. First play of the game, this guy knifes into the backfield, 3 yards deep, makes a tackle for a 3-yard loss. I'm like, man, that's impressive. I mean, he can do that. And so he's got ability. He's an inside linebacker in a 3-4 defense. That's what he is. And you play a 3-4 defense. You drafted here for guys specifically to fit your defensive front. And so he can fit in. I'll be anxious to see how well he comes in and acclimates himself to the National Football League and the speed of the game, because at times I thought he struggled with the speed of the game in college. Well, that's going to be amped up by ×3. So I don't know if he'll be able to survive the speed of the game in the National Football League. We'll see. You know, I don't want to count this guy out because he made some plays in college, but I got my doubts here. I got my doubts on this one. 6th round, 203rd selection overall linebacker out of Western Kentucky, Andrew Jackson, for me, is a single. I don't have a lot of confidence in this guy. Obviously, you can tell by the grade I just gave him. Not a lot of confidence here. Don't like his height. Don't like his movement skills. He's tight in the hips. You know, everything looks a lot slower for him. And if you're that short and you're that stocky, I want explosion. I want quickness. I don't see it. I see a guy that can lay the hammer, that can help you in the run game, but doesn't do a lot else. And that's not enough for me in the package that I'm getting with Andrew Jackson. So we move on to the 5th and final selection in this draft. 7th round pick, 232nd pick overall, offensive tackle out of Georgia State, John Ulrich. And Ulrich is an interesting case because watching him on tape, he's got some good movement skills. I mean, I watched him get out on a bubble screen against Tennessee. I watched him get to the second level a bunch of times. And he fits more in a zone run blocking scheme is what he does. I mean, he does finish runs. He's got a nasty disposition about him. That's something you like, especially when you're talking about run blocking. But he's such a light guy. And I'm pretty sure if he gets in an NFL weight training program, he can put on some additional weight. But at 285, 290 pounds, man, you rarely see that in the league anymore. I mean, guys aren't that light anymore. Just hard to survive in this league with guys getting bigger and stronger and faster. The day of the 285-pound offensive linemen, those are all but extinct. You don't see those guys anymore. And so he's definitely got to put on some weight, because at that size, you're just going to get jacked up. Guys are going to pick you up and literally put you in the lap of the quarterback. Guys are going to toss you to the side. And I saw that happen to him in one of the games I was watching. A guy literally tossed him to the side and went in and made a tackle on a ball carrier. So, you know, that's something that he would definitely have to clean up, because you're going to find it pretty tough in this league to anchor at 285, 290 pounds. Guys are going to have their way with you and really move you and redirect you and do what it is they want to do to you to allow them to get to the ball carrier. So that's something that he would definitely have to work on. Only had 20 reps at the combine, his combine at 2.25. And so for an offensive lineman, that's not something you brag about. So again, those things go hand in hand. 285, 290 pounds, only 20 reps at 2.25. Those things kind of go hand in hand. He's got to get stronger. But I like the movement skills. I like the nastiness in the run game. I like the fact that he was in a zone run blocking scheme. That means he's got functional movement skills. That means he can get to the second level. Sometimes he struggled getting to that block. A lot of times he was trying to cut guys and he wouldn't be able to get there and get his head in front so that he could cut block. And he picked up a couple of penalties in the game blocking guys from behind. You can hurt people like that. I hate to see guys go low, especially when they don't get in the right position. But all in all, he's a 7th round pick. So obviously there's work there to be done. Is he salvageable? Maybe. I'm not sure. But again, it's a 7th round pick. You take a flyer on a guy, you see if it works. If it doesn't, you keep it moving. You don't feel bad. It's a 7th round pick. So 7th round pick, 231st overall, offensive tackle out of Georgia State. John Ulrich for me is a single. A lot of work here to be done. I think he could turn into a swing tackle, a guy that you play on the left or the right as a backup, and you break the glass in case of an emergency, and you slide John Ulrich. And we know the Colts, they go through offensive linemen sometimes, and you got to put 5 guys in front of Andrew Luck that are going to protect him for years to come. It's time for this guy to stop having to run around and guys chasing him and pressure on him and him having to do so much. Protect him, allow him to sit in the pocket, analyze the field, go through his progressions and reads, and find the open guy. And so John Ulrich is a guy that you don't want starting, but maybe he can become a swing tackle for you. Who knows? We'll see. But that's the Indianapolis Colts draft. Not a home run in sight. And normally those type of things can happen when you don't have a 1st round pick. You don't get anything elite. Now you got elite talent in the 3rd round. But because of a couple of deficiencies, he's not a home run. So 2nd round, you get Jack Mewhort, offensive lineman that can play all 5 positions along the offensive line. I think he's more suited for guard or center than he is tackle. He's a triple out of Ohio State. You go to the 3rd round, Donte Moncrief, to me, has every bit of #1 receiver written all over him. If you can get this guy to catch the football and learn how to run routes. And I'm thinking a guy like Reggie Wayne has to be the best thing that ever happened to Donte Moncrief, because Reggie Wayne is the consummate professional, and he works hard. He's got work ethic, and he can show Donte Moncrief the tricks of the trade. And if he can learn from Reggie Wayne, he needs to get in Reggie Wayne's back pocket. And if he can learn from that guy, I think you've got yourself a bona fide #1 in the 3rd round. He's a triple just because there's some things he has to clean up. You go to the 5th round, Jonathan Newsome. I think there's a lot of talent there. But again, making a transition to a new position, I think there's some things he's got to iron out, some kinks that he's definitely got to straighten out. If he can do that, I think you got yourself something there in the 5th round. He's a double. Andrew Jackson, not really feeling this guy. He's diminutive. He's not fast. He's a thumper, but he still misses tackles too. He's a single for me. And John Ulrich, a project out of Georgia State at the tackle position, very light in the pants, needs to put on some weight, needs to be able to anchor a little bit better. I think he has some really good movement skills, but there's a lot there that he has to work on as a football player, and so he is also a single. So you go and you add this up, triple, that's 6. You got a double, that's 8, and 2 more singles makes it 10. You have no bonuses here, and so 10 divided by 5 gives you 2, which means this is a double for the Indianapolis Colts in the 2014 NFL Draft wrap-up. And so, thank you for joining me. You know how this goes. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the lab room. I thank you for joining me. One question remains. Who's next?
Draft Zone.
Like the content? Want more? Sub up.